New York City mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani calls himself a democratic socialist. Bernie Sanders calls himself a democratic socialist. Even Hugo Chavez campaigned specifically as a democratic socialist when he ran for president of Venezuela in 1999. But is the term democratic socialist a contradiction in terms? An oxymoron, like the living dead? Now, if I had just risen from the dead, would I, A, ask what happened, B, request some water, C, call for an ambulance, or D, fight someone? And of course, the answer is D, fight someone. 100%. Of course, there's also choice E, subscribe to this channel. That's another good option. So why might the term democratic socialist be an oxymoron? Well, the first thing socialists seem to do after being democratically elected is get rid of the democracy part. For example, incumbent and heir to the Hugo Chavez throne, Nicolás Maduro, supposedly won the recent election in Venezuela, despite exit polls suggesting his opponent had won by a big margin.
A showdown in Venezuela as leader Nicolás Maduro is declared the winner of the country's presidential election. The opposition is pushing back, pointing to independent exit polls showing a win by Maduro rival Edmundo González, who also claimed victory.
Now, when confronted with this information, Maduro scoffed at the opposition.
Por ahí algunos voceros de la derecha, Juan Pablo Guanipa y otros más, han hablado de repetición de elecciones. ¿Qué es eso? Gané la partida de dominó y pido que se repita.
Really? Dominoes? That's what you got? What do board games have to do with politics?
I was Jenga king in college, and now you want me to pull out of Ukraine? That's insane.
Yeah, it's because you were Jenga king in college that we want you to pull out of Ukraine. Yeah, you got that right. And President Maduro, with all due respect, you're surprised somebody wants to play dominoes best of 3? Of course. Nobody plays just one game of dominoes. That's like eating one M&M. You can't do that. That's like Hitler stopping after invading one country.
Poland, done. Any good series you'd recommend on Hulu?
By the way, at the end of that clip, Maduro plugged his new book, How I Quit Cheating at Dominoes, which I'm sure you're going to want to pick up a copy of. Socialism is like the law of conservation of energy in physics, which says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Socialists don't create power for big government, they must transfer it from somewhere. Citizens is the only place it could come from. Even corporations are comprised of citizens. But maybe we're wrong, and democracy and socialism are compatible. Here's Bernie Sanders to set us straight.
First, we're going to explain what democratic socialism is. And what democratic socialism is about is saying that it is immoral and wrong that the top 1/10 of 1% in this country own almost 90%, own almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%.
The question is really about electability here, and that's what I'm trying to get at. The Republican Attack Act against you in a general election, it writes itself. You supported the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, you honeymooned in the Soviet Union, and just this weekend you said you're not a capitalist.
I think Anderson Cooper was right. And here's the rest of the list of Bernie Sanders ammunition for Republican attack ads. Sanders hates Chunky Monkey ice cream. That alone could lose you an American election. Photoshop Stalin out of bar mitzvah picture. Well, I would have done the same thing. Sang Sweet Caroline at Hamas rally. Now that's just wrong. I can see those Republican attack ads now. So don't judge a book by its cover, or a political candidate or political party by their self-description. But when socialists like Mamdani call themselves democratic socialists, perhaps to make the socialist part seem less extreme, that kind of double talk is nothing new among big government advocates. Shortly after Fidel Castro gained power in Cuba in 1959, he brought a watermelon into his first cabinet meeting and said, "Yeah, this revolution may look green and capitalist on the outside." And then he grabbed a machete and dramatically cut the watermelon in half to the shock of his cabinet members. And then he said, "But I assure you that inside, it's communist red." Like when I overeat, it's fun and games on the outside and Pepto-Bismol on the inside. No such thing as a democratic socialist. Now, socialist by itself, there's plenty of successful socialists in history. There's, no, not him. I'll think of one and get back to you.